I never thought a single summer would mark the start of such a shift. My name's Vanessa, and though I'm 45, people often guess much younger. I credit it to yoga, clean eating, and I'll admit, a little good luck in the gene pool. Still, lately I've felt the years in places I hadn't expected. My second husband, Bill, is 54. He's settled into a kind of passive existence, lounging on the couch with a television humming, like life has become a slow drip of reruns and forgotten conversations. And then there's Ethan, my son, my anchor in many ways. He's 22 now, full of depth and quiet brilliance. From early on, he carried a calmness that always set him apart. While other kids kicked soccer balls and built forts, Ethan would sit beneath a tree, nose in a book, asking questions that made even grown-ups pause. He's home again this summer, standing at the edge of adulthood with one foot still in the familiar. It's his final break before senior year at NYU, and I wanted this time to feel like something we'd remember, not just another blur of days. With Bill tuned out and little support from him, the house had fallen behind. I stared at a long list of things that needed doing, overwhelmed. Finally, I walked to Ethan's door and knocked gently. "Hey," I said, peeking in. He looked up from his screen, his face attentive, his eyes steady. That's one thing about Ethan. He hears you the first time. Always has. "I need some help," I admitted. "Actually, more than a little. I don't want to ask for nothing, so I'd like to pay you. Just something small." His eyes flickered. Maybe surprise, maybe something else. He gave a crooked half-smile. "You're going to pay me?" "You're not a kid anymore," I said simply. "Your time matters." He paused, studying me, then nodded. "Okay, if it makes you feel better." And so it began. A few things at first, tightening the kitchen faucet, hauling boxes from the basement, putting order to the clutter. But as the days went by, I found myself watching him when he wasn't aware. Noticing the way he moved, how the shape of his shoulders had shifted, how his voice had deepened. The space between us changed too. It crept in softly, in the way our arms brushed in the kitchen as we reached for the same glass, or when our eyes met and held for just a beat longer than they used to. I told myself it was just me, just a passing loneliness. But the sense of something unspoken lingered. One afternoon, I was bent over in the garden pulling weeds when he walked up behind me, a cool drink in hand. "You skipped lunch," he said, handing me a glass of lemonade. "You need a break." I stood, wiping dirt off my knees. Didn't realize it was that late. He watched me for a moment. "You do too much. Honestly, it should be Bill out here helping, not just sitting around." His tone caught me off guard, gentle but sharp, like he'd been holding it in. "He's just settled," I said carefully. Ethan didn't answer, just looked at me, his gaze intense in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the dark, thoughts circling, wondering when the shift had started, whether it was all in my head, or if I was craving connection so much that I was inventing it. But then came the moment that would tip everything. Bill had gone out with some old friends. I was steeping tea in the kitchen, the air quiet and warm, when Ethan came in. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and just looked at me. "Why do you put up with it?" he asked eventually. "With what?" I blinked. "With him. The way he doesn't show up. The way he checks out." His voice held no judgment, only quiet fire. I swallowed hard. "Because that's what you do," I said. "You learn to meet people where they are, even if it means settling." He shook his head, jaw tight. "You shouldn't have to settle." The silence between us buzzed, low and pulsing. Later that week, the sun had drenched the living room in golden streaks. I'd spent hours hunched over my laptop, managing deadlines, my back screaming in protest. I stood, stretched, and winced. A knot of pain radiated across my lower spine, stiff and stubborn. I didn't need a doctor. Just relief. Just a few moments. Just someone who could reach the places I couldn't. And for the first time, I thought of asking him. And then a thought surfaced. At first it was faint, something I tried to wave away, like a cloud crossing the sun. But it kept circling back, clearer each time, until it felt like a quiet knock inside my mind that I could no longer ignore. I found myself walking down the hallway, slow, uncertain steps carrying me forward before I had fully decided. Ethan's door was partially open. He was lying across the bed, one arm tucked behind his head, his tablet glowing softly in his hands. He looked completely at ease, like he belonged in every inch of his own body. "Hey," I said softly, leaning my shoulder against the door frame. He glanced up immediately, focused, attentive.
"Hey.
"Everything okay?" I nodded, though it wasn't quite steady. "Can I ask you something a little unusual?" His eyebrow lifted slightly, curiosity flickering in his expression.
"Sure."
I stepped into the room, fingers brushing nervously at the hem of my shirt. I've had this knot in my back all afternoon. I've been sitting at the computer for hours, and it just won't ease up. I hesitated, feeling my pulse quicken. "Would you mind giving me a massage?" He blinked once, surprised. "A massage?" "Yes," I exhaled. "I'll pay you, like we agreed, for your help around the house. It's just, I could use the relief, and I didn't want to book an appointment somewhere else." He sat up slowly, setting the tablet down. There was no judgment in his face, only quiet thoughtfulness. "You don't need to pay me for that," he said gently. "I'd feel better if I did." I replied quickly, maybe too quickly. "Your time matters, and I don't want to take more than I should." His expression softened, warm, almost tender. "Mom, you're not taking anything from me. Of course I'll help." I swallowed, grateful and unsettled all at once. We moved to the living room where I had already laid a soft throw blanket across the couch. The windows were cracked open, letting in the scent of freshly cut grass and the faint sweetness of blooming lilacs. The afternoon light filtered in, still and golden, like the house itself was holding its breath. I sat down and gathered my hair loosely at the back of my neck, exposing my shoulders. "It's mostly here," I murmured. Ethan took a seat behind me. His hands hovered for a moment, just the ghost of warmth, before they finally touched my skin. The first contact made me inhale sharply, not from discomfort, but from the unexpectedness of his touch. His palms were warm, steady, and slow as they pressed into my shoulders. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. He worked quietly, without rushing. His hands moved with the kind of care that didn't feel casual or routine. It felt deliberate, present. "You're holding a lot of tension," he said, his voice close low. "Yeah," I breathed. "I guess I have been." His thumbs slid along the curve where my neck met my shoulder, and a soft shiver rolled through me. I hated that I noticed it. I hated that my thoughts tangled, but I couldn't deny the warmth spreading under my skin. This was Ethan, my son. And yet, he paused a moment. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I whispered. "Keep going."
He did.
My muscles softened under his hands, but another kind of tightness curled inside my chest, quieter, deeper. His touch hadn't changed suddenly. It was still gentle, still careful, but there was something behind it now. Something like understanding, like recognition. When he stopped, my body felt light, but my thoughts were anything but. "Thank you," I said, turning to look at him. His eyes met mine, steady, searching, unguarded. "Anytime," he said softly. Something shifted there, quiet, but undeniable. I sat for a long moment, feeling the air settle around us. Relaxed, yes, but not entirely. A quiet pull hummed beneath the calm. Before I could talk myself out of it, I spoke. "Could you maybe do a bit more?" I heard his breath hitch, just slightly. "More?" he asked, careful. I swallowed. "Maybe a foot massage. Or just above the knees." I've been standing all day. The air changed. Not tense, just still. He didn't tease me, didn't question. He just nodded once. You don't have to pay me, he said again, his voice unreadable. I know, I murmured. But I want to. Let me do that. He didn't answer, not with words. But his hands moved again. Down to my calves first, firm and slow. Then to my feet, his touch precise and patient. The relief washed over me, warm and overwhelming. My breath trembled on the exhale. When his hands moved upward again, gently, carefully, just to the place above my knees, something warm flickered low in my stomach. Still respectful, still controlled, but close to the line. Close enough that we both felt where the line was, and how close we were to it. Ushering in a breeze that did nothing to cool the tension in the air. I felt his fingers slow pause. Then he asked, his voice lower now, more careful. Is this okay? I swallowed, unsure if I could even trust my voice. Yes, I said softly. It's perfect. He stayed there for a moment longer, his touch lingering at the edge of comfort and curiosity. And then he slowly drew his hands back. Neither of us said a word as I sat up, brushing my hair back behind my ear. I didn't look at him right away. I couldn't. But when I did, I saw something in his eyes that both terrified and thrilled me. Awareness, connection. We were no longer walking the path we had always known. We were someplace new now, quiet, uncertain, and charged with possibility. I stayed still, unsure of what to do next, unsure of where we stood after the fragile quiet that followed his hands leaving my skin. But I didn't move. Maybe I couldn't. Maybe I didn't want to. And then, without a word, I felt his hands return slowly, purposefully. They slid along the sides of my legs again, working upward, this time more confidently, as though the silence between us had given him permission. I never voiced. I should have said something, anything. I should have asked what he was doing, but I didn't. I just let it happen. He shifted behind me, and suddenly his voice, soft and steady, broke the hush. Lie back, he said. Put your head here. I turned slightly, just enough to see that he had made space for me to rest on his legs. There was no hesitation in his expression. No discomfort, just calm, collected intent. I slowly laid my head down across his thighs, the warmth of him grounding me. I was still in my summer dress, the fabric thin between us, and I became keenly aware of every inch where our bodies met. Then his hands moved again, this time higher, gentle pressure across my collarbones, the curve of my shoulder, downward, easing over my chest. I froze, not from fear, from the stunning electric stillness that seized me the moment his fingers touched the place no one had in years. He didn't speak, and neither did I. My breath was shallow. My eyes stared at the ceiling, counting invisible cracks in the plaster, anything to keep from spiraling. But the spiral came anyway because he wasn't rushing. He wasn't careless. His fingers traced over me like I was something sacred. Slow circles over the edge of fabric, the space just above my heart. As if he were trying to comfort me or understand me. As if he was asking a question without words. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. His hands moved with a strange mixture of reverence and certainty, like he had imagined this moment and was only now daring to step into it. I kept waiting for the fear, the guilt, the recoil. But what came instead was quiet, a stillness I hadn't felt in years. I closed my eyes. I didn't say his name. I didn't ask what he was doing or why. And he didn't ask if it was all right this time. Maybe he didn't need to. Maybe. Deep down, I had already answered him with my stillness, my silence, my surrender. And somehow that felt like the most honest moment between us yet. The room was still. My breath came shallow and uneven. A strange pressure building in my chest like a storm gathering behind my ribs. I didn't move. Not even when Oliver's fingers, careful and unwavering, continued tracing circles over my skin, his palms grounded against me like he was anchoring me to the earth. I felt warmth flood through me, more than physical. It reached into places I hadn't let anyone touch for years, places I didn't even know still existed. The longer it went on, the harder it became to stay composed. My body betrayed me first, hips tensing, breath catching a low, quiet sound rising from the back of my throat. I brought my hand to my mouth reflexively to silence it, to keep this from spilling into something too real, something I couldn't undo. But Oliver noticed his hand left my chest and reached for mine. He gently pulled it away from my lips and held it in his own, his voice low and firm as he whispered, "Don't hold back." I looked up at him, then really looked. He wasn't the boy I had raised. He wasn't confused or unsure. He knew, and still he stayed. He leaned closer, his breath grazing my forehead, his touch no longer just soothing, but deliberate. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight with everything I wasn't saying, everything I couldn't admit to myself. So, I just lay there, my head still on his lap, feeling the steady beat of his heart where it met my cheek. And then he kissed me. Not sudden, not wild. It was quiet, measured, an answer to every word we hadn't said. His lips brushed mine with a reverence that made my heart twist like he wasn't asking for anything, only giving. I didn't pull away for a single breathless moment. I allowed it to happen because somewhere inside I understood this was the moment we couldn't go back from.